Hello, everybody. I'm Joyanne Haigh. We welcome our viewers and listeners in Barbados and around the world to another edition of Face It and Fix It on CBC TV 8, CBC Barbados Facebook and YouTube, and of course, Q100.7 FM radio. Today, as school begins fully online, we welcome the President of the Barbados Secondary Teachers Union, Ms. Mary Ann Redmond. And she will be on our show today to let us know exactly how teachers are feeling as we start the new term. As Barbados faces this new surge, what are the plans and concerns of the leading body of unions, the Congress of Trade Unions and Staff Associations of Barbados? And to tell us more about this, its General Secretary, Mr. DePeiza, will shed some light on these other issues. Starting off our show this morning is none other than Dr. Brian Charles, Emergency Specialist Physician, and he will let us know some information that's going on there around remdesivir and that drug. And of course, I want to also hear from you Barbadians and your thoughts about people using the internet and computers today, if they're using it properly. How far is too far when it comes to unsubstantiated voice notes and videos making claims and calling names without the benefit of those named to make the corrections or defend themselves? And do you see any danger in it? And to help us to better get a handle on the legalities of this is none other than Attorney at Law, Mr. Mark Hope, will also be joining us on the show. As always, you can call us Mark Ford, my apologies. Mr. Mark Ford will be joining us to discuss and to bring some clarification on the do's and don'ts of the Computer Misuse Act. As always, you can call us at 228-5563 or 228-5562. Send us a WhatsApp message on 228-5562 only. And if you want to watch us on Facebook, kindly type your comments there at CBC Barbados and you'll find us. Face It and Fix It. When we come back, we'll be talking to Dr. Brian Charles. We'll be back. Welcome back to Face It and Fix It. Our first guest is no stranger. Well respected in Barbados and around the world, Dr. Brian Charles, Emergency Physician Specialist, is joining us yet again and to continue our COVID conversations and in order to bring some clarification on some information sometimes in Barbados that will circulate. Some of it may not get attention and some of it may. And this morning, we are hearing a name, Dr. Brian Charles, and that's pertaining to this drug by the name of remdesivir. I've never heard it before, the COVID outbreak, and I'm sure Barbadians have never heard it before, but we keep hearing this name. And I want you to tell us, what exactly is this medication and what is it for?
Good morning. Good morning, Barbados. Good morning, John. The drug remdesivir is a class of drug called within that's called an antiviral, and remdesivir prevents the propagation and the replication of viruses. The drug really was first used majorly in Africa in the Ebola outbreak in 2016, where it had some success. And with the onset of the pandemic in 2020, then there was a renewed interest in the use of remdesivir as it is an antiviral drug. And showed the use of this drug prevented the onset of pneumonias in COVID-19, as well as it shortened the hospitalized stay of persons who were getting the drug. Shortened the hospitalization stay from 2 weeks to 9 days. And it also prevented pneumonias in a significant portion of persons who were studied. This drug was not released for use for COVID until around October, I think, October, November 2020. So it's still relatively new, so maybe not yet, but the results have been promising and it has been used for thousands of people all over the world. And we have been using it in combination with other drugs to try to treat COVID-19. And you know that COVID is caused by a drug called a virus called SARS-CoV-2, and this virus, there's no treatment per se that directly um, or keeps the virus away. We have ways of managing it, with the social distancing, the mask wear, frequent sanitization, etc., and vaccination. No specific drug that goes against the COVID-19 itself. But remdesivir, which prevents the replication or the multiplication of the virus in the body, has been shown to have a very good effect.
So, if persons are having symptoms and let's just say they present a little bit too late, like everything in life, and you present too late with anything, whether it's stage 4 cancer, you try your best, but the earlier you are treated, possibly with these drugs, the better outcome you will see. So
that's very good.
So because I think some people, again, they're doctors and they're there to help save your life, but sometimes it's too late to even use other medications. And these are things that are explained by doctors all the time, not just with COVID. Now, I want to get back to the care and the necessary care that is required for persons who are in isolation, and particularly those who are symptomatic. How important it is for doctors to be there for them, and what are some of the types of the things that, if you're a patient, I know you're not the doctor in charge of isolation and you're not there, but certainly you must have some sort of knowledge. It's not different to the care that you normally get, but I understand it's a little extra special sometimes at Harrison's Point because they have their own chef, for example, and a lot of things have been put in place to make people very comfortable, symptomatic or asymptomatic. You want to expand a little bit on the treatment, whether it be the actual general treatment and the medical treatment that one can expect.
Right. So the first thing I want to say, there are a couple of important facts with COVID-19, and these must be borne in mind. One. The first thing is that, as we said many times on this program, that everyone who gets COVID-19, most people will not be symptomatic. But if positive, we need to keep you away from those persons who are vulnerable and who don't have COVID-19 so that they will not catch it. So that's the first principle of isolation. You are COVID positive either because you showed some symptoms and you were sick, or you were contact traced. If you are positive, we need to keep you separately for a period of 10 to 14 days until you can't spread the COVID anymore. The first treatment of COVID. The second thing is that there are a certain subset of the population that has vulnerability to make COVID much worse than the persons who don't get or have mild. So these people are persons who have non-communicable diseases like diabetes and hypertension and respiratory diseases, and persons who have cancers and persons who are obese. All of those people have a high level, very sick and needed hospitalization and ICU treatment. So when positive, we keep a very close eye on this special group. We also are recognizing that with Delta, that more young people are becoming, and more young are going from having mild illness, severe illness. Those persons are very carefully. So what do we monitor? We monitor things like your vital signs, which would be your pulse and your blood pressure, and very importantly, your rate, which is how labored your breathing is, and the level of oxygenation in the body, which is easily defined by what's called a pulse oximeter, a little device which I'm sure you've seen onto the fingers of persons. If those remain stable while you are COVID positive, that's all well and good. And within 10 to 14 days, you're likely to get better and be discharged from isolation. However, set of the population that gets very ill very quickly, and Dr. Ford has spoken about this on national television. Persons will come down not feeling well, and within 12 to 24 hours need to be ventilated. They need to have a tube down their throat so that we can breathe for them. The people who are in primary isolation meaning ICU admission, and persons in secondary isolation are those persons who are needing oxygen now, and those persons who are needing extra care so that they maintain their oxygen status for that 10 to 14 days before they can be discharged. While you are getting this oxygen, that this oxygen can either be done through a nasal prong or mask, you are monitored very carefully for signs of deterioration. Now, we just mentioned a drug called remdesivir. Remdesivir is not used for everyone who's COVID positive or even persons in secondary isolation. Who are very ill now, who are in primary isolation, they then get a cocktail of drugs that will help the body to fight again and keep the systems going while you fight it off. And that is basically the stepwise approach to the treatment of COVID-19 in the different categories of sickness.
Wow, that's certainly a lot to take, and a lot of work actually has to be done. Are there any other drugs? You said there's a cocktail. There are one or two others that I think people might have been putting out there, and then wanted to correct them that that's not even one of the drugs that are used. You want to go into detail, because we're hearing so many. And let me just say this, by the way, the stories that we do hear and unfortunately circulate are not from anyone in the medical profession. But unfortunately, there are some who may grasp that and let that digest. So we want for you to sort of clarify anything that you feel, giving you this opportunity that went out there in terms of medication. Remdesivir was one, but I think that they were comparing it to something else, and I'm not quite sure what it is. I think you may know what I'm talking about. There's some myths out there with other medications.
So I just give you a point. The proven facts about the drugs that are being used, and these are drugs that have been peer reviewed, they have been studied, there's numerous data on it, and we will only use the drugs that have been proven to work. And though every single drug that you use has sex, and it's safe, a be all and end all game that we are in here now, some drugs have side effects. I would like to say all drugs have side effects. Rare itself has some side effects as well. But when you weigh the risk of not using the remdesivir versus using the remdesivir, we, the medical profession, would like to use the remdesivir. The drugs that are used are, for example, the steroid that we've been using for years, and that's called dexamethasone. Now, when people hear of this, sort of defense, like, is this something that I need? Well, it has been shown that use of dexamethasone within the very COVID patient does help. And these are we administer to the persons at Harrison Point in primary isolation. Now, there are other drugs that you would have heard, you've seen on the internet that are
We heard
banned
about
around the high.
midazolam. Midazolam. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Probably midazolam. Midazolam is a drug that's used as a sedative for persons who are intubated. That's just one of the drugs, not for treatment of COVID, but for the to make it easy to manage you while you are being taken care of. And so all of these drugs we use we can manage a very dangerous period of time that you are sick. Now, getting back to the remdesivir story, there are some side effects of remdesivir, and I've seen it, and it was circulating about kidney and liver damage. Yes, there have been some evidence of some mild damage with those in those organs, but the damage is also caused by COVID. We don't know if it's a COVID-related injury to the organ or a remdesivir-related injury, but usually after 10 days of treatment, those that is reversible by the patient that gets better. So, I mean, I've heard terms of these drugs are toxic and they're poisoning people and stuff, but all this is how drugs work. They're not natural.
Before you go on, someone just messaged me here privately to ask me to repeat the name of the drug that I just messed up. They said the one that I said Midas. What do you call it? What do you call it? Say again.
Midazolam.
Midazolam. So for the
Midazolam.
person who just messaged it, they wanted you to repeat it because I certainly messed it up. But what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break right here. We're going to come right back with you, Dr. Charles, more when we come back.
Sure.
Welcome back to Face It and Fix It. We are speaking with Dr. Charles, Dr. Brian Charles, emergency specialist physician. We do have a caller on the line, Dr. Charles, before we continue. Good morning, Face It and Fix It. You're on the air.
Peace be unto you, Mrs. Haigh, to the distinguished doc, and to all the viewers. This is something I'd like to ask the doc. Sir, you see in France, or what I should say, well, you're seeing it too, because it's still showing you things happening in France. France, the USA, the UK, and those other big countries, they take you right into the crisis ward. I would like you all to show a lot of the Barbadians, because a lot of us ain't taking heed, and they're still going out and doing things as normal. They're trying to break the code, everything. I would like it there to see what is going on and see the patients and see if they would take heed and try to stop the spread of this thing. Because, you know, you're playing, everybody playing, and I see the tiredness on the Minister of Health, all the doctors, all doctors, especially Dr. Ferdinand. I pray for her every night. She's such a wonderful person. And all the nurses, everybody. And people still ain't taking heed. And I feel that the government should let us see on the television, the nurse, she came, and people still, although she told us she was at death's door, she almost died. Some people still ain't hearing. So show us and see if people will stop what they are doing to save other lives. And it hurt me when I see innocent, the elderly who went no way outside and die from it. Anyhow, that is my plea. Thank you.
Thank you so much, caller. Thank you. How important is it? And I mean, I know you're not a public relations person, but we do know that there's something called patient-doctor confidentiality, and certain people may not want the public to know that they have COVID or had COVID. But certainly, it is a good point that she made. Instead of you showing the public what's inside, maybe the patients, when they recover, can come back to tell us what happened on the inside. It brings a equal credibility, because I wouldn't say more, just as much credibility from the doctors. It would come from the patients, because the name of the game here is good health care, and the recipient having to say, yes, I got the best health care. How important is that in this crisis?
That's very important. Mm-hmm. Very important. And as they say, seeing is believing. And I certainly agree with the caller. There are certain limits that we can show, and we can't just bring crews in all the time into the intensive care situation, because as you can appreciate, it's an intensive care, life-threatening and life-supporting things going on. So we have to make sure that everyone is kept confidential. But yes, certainly, I think it's a good point that's being made. I also want to extend on her point in that, remember, the medical profession, we took an oath to help. We took an oath to make sure that we try to keep people from dying, and we try to keep people from suffering. And our code of ethics speaks to 4 very important things which are being exercised by Harrison Point and by all the other medical institutions. Our code speaks to one of autonomy, whereby we can't do anything to anyone without their consent. So even like giving a drug, or like a dangerous drug, or even any normal drug within your practice, we speak to the patient, explain to them what they're getting, and get their consent. We always have to do no harm. So we're not going to exercise a procedure or give a drug that we know is going to be harmful. And we should always do good. Whatever we do in the profession, it should be for the better good of mankind. And lastly, the last ethical tenet is that there should be justice, in that we should treat everyone the same way, regardless of their ideology or their religion or their creed, what their beliefs are. And this is why I feel that, it's very hard on the healthcare professionals doing such a great job at Harrison Point, that persons can come and say that they are not doing these things at which they were bound to. They all made a oath of ethics to follow these things. So, these are things that we do every single day, day in and day out. And as the dear caller just said, she can see how tired the doctors are, some of the nurses are. They've been working 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week. And I know doctors and nurses up there and, in other places that haven't taken a break. Look at the public health, division of the Ministry of Health. There are contact tracing day in, day out. And it is not an easy job. They have to go out there and they have to find out who's been exposed, what are the history, and that stuff. So it's a very commendable job that they're doing, and I'm thanking the caller for bringing it up to light.
Well, I mean, I want to share in that with you. We've said it before, we'll continue to say it. I think what floors me, and I guess I can speak freely, I'm not a doctor here, I can speak without fear or favor. I've seen and heard some things circulating that are hurtful, especially to people who are in your business, the healthcare business, who've been trying and trying and trying. But as the average Barbadian layman here, I'm thinking to myself, so when you send out videos like this and discredit doctors, you're hoping never to get sick. And even if you do get sick, the same doctors you cannot refuse. In other words, your role as a doctor, regardless of whatever they say, and you see them on the street and you're a doctor, you see somebody in a restaurant choking, you're a doctor, you are duty bound to help them. And I think Barbadians understand this, and I really don't think that most Barbadians are listening to a lot of the rhetoric, the crap that we're hearing, and let's call it what it is. It's crap. For people to discredit doctors who have saved lives over the years, hundreds of years, now in Barbados saving lives, continuing to do so, why all of a sudden they're being accused of doing the opposite? And yes. I sure right-minded thinking people would agree with us. And as I said, we're not here to convince, we're here to bring the facts. And Dr. Brian Charles is here to bring the facts about what they do on a daily basis. How does that impact you though, personally? I know you spoke for all the others. When you have to listen, not you have to, but people share it and they show you not out of malice, they show you to say, look, this is what's happening out there. How do you feel?
Yeah. So personally, because we've taken an oath to help people regardless, we have to realize that we are ethically bound to listen to all of this misinformation, listen to how it's being portrayed, and try to correct it so that persons are not malaligned, persons don't become unfavorably influenced by the wrong information. And it makes us sometimes, and I've heard some of my colleagues, not only here, but in the other islands like Jamaica, some of them are really, really frustrated. And we had a forum, I think 2 weeks ago, where we had to tell the doctors, look, listen, I know you are frustrated that people are not getting vaccinated, people are getting very sick, and then when they present it, they ask for everything. I know that, but we cannot hold that against them. We still have to treat them the best way we can. And I say all of this to say, even with the whatever circulating, we, the profession, still have to go out there and do the best we can, regardless of your ideology. The only thing that we ask is that you make your decisions either on the medications or the treatments or the donations based on fact and based on the correct information, and make your choice and make a responsible choice. And it's interesting that you brought this up, because when the profession gets overwhelmed, like for example Harrison Point and the other isolation facilities, we are taking resources from the normal health care system, and I want to make that highly understood. We don't have an infinite amount of resources, and when we are taking these resources away from the persons who are fallen, who have broken limbs, who have the pneumonias, who have the gunshot wounds, the heart attacks, the stroke, they cannot get the medical care that they need. And that's the thing. Even in a place like Idaho in the States, they are now rationing medical care. They are so overwhelmed. And this is in the United States. So we in Barbados have to do the best thing that we can to protect our little bit of resources that we have. And I say thank you to the Ministry of the Public Health and the Ministry of Health and Wellness and the doctors at the TVH and isolation facilities. So far, we're doing a very good job. But we need to get the backing of the public all with us so that we can continue and preserve as we are right now.
Well, I want to tell you this. There are a lot of us backing you out there, and the vaccines are increasing in terms of persons coming forward. We know the Prime Minister has suggested that 10,000 a week would be best. And I can tell you this: what is the one thing that every Barbadian want right now? We want freedom. We want to go out. I would like to put on something nice and go to dinner or go and party, truthfully. And I know every Barbadian, I don't care what class you come from, what kind of job you got, all of us want our freedom. And in order to achieve that, there are some things that we need to do, and we need to just listen and comply. A quick question here. They have a friend at Harrison's Point due to COVID, couldn't have had better treatment. They're appreciative of meals, etc. Exercise machine. What? Exercise machine? I gotta go down there. Not that I want to, but I have to visit. I did say I was going to visit. So Dr. Corey Ford, if you're listening, I will visit, of course, and I will make sure that I'm protected. And I know they're doing a fantastic job, because the staff there have not caught COVID from the patients there. They're excellent in terms of making sure that everything has been put in place. But Dr. Charles, I'm going to leave final word at you. 1 minute. Again, I said we are here. We are backing all of you, and I know there's going to be a lot more to come that will be backing you and the vaccination program. I know that life will get back, even if it's a new normal. I know I'm getting to go back out again before Christmas or by Christmas. Final word at you, sir.
Thank you. Just remember, Barbados, that the medical fraternity is here to help. We are not going to be given anything that's going to be harmful. We are always doing the best that we can to save life and to save suffering, prevent suffering. And we can only do that with you in mind, with your permission and consent. And we will, regardless of what's happening out there, we will treat you the best we can with the best abilities and resources that we have. And please go out there and vaccinate.
Thank you, Brian Charleston. One message me said quickly, Joy, you too old to party. But anyway, that doesn't matter. The point is, I know we all want our freedom.
Freedom.
And I think that's everybody. Thank you so much, Dr. Charles. I know this is not the last time, and we encourage you to come back until we get more Barbadians understanding the truth and making decisions based on the truth. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be back. Thank you. We'll be back after the break with Marianne Redmond. We'll be back. Welcome back to Face It and Fix It. Our next guest is someone we all know in Barbados. I actually had the privilege of speaking to her on another show many months ago. and she's always in the news, especially around this time. I want to welcome Mary Ann Redmond, President of the Barbados Secondary Teachers Union, BSTU. Ms. Redmond, welcome to Face It and Fix It for the first time.
Thank you, Joyanne, for that warm welcome.
Well, you know, I'm going to have to ask you this question directed at you first, because we often forget about the teachers, especially in this pandemic. Sometimes we forget that they're human. Sometimes we forget that they have families. We see them as teachers and for our children. And I'll tell you this, I'll tell you the truth. Growing up, I saw my teacher as someone who did nothing wrong, and not even having a boyfriend or even getting married. I was shocked when my teacher showed up pregnant at school, and I'm like, teachers don't get pregnant. So I can understand sometimes the mindset of how we have the perception of our teachers in this like bubble and how we see them. But we know that they're people too. So I want to ask you a personal question. How are you coping? How are you doing personally during this pandemic before we start about the teachers in general?
Joyanne, thank you for that question. The reality is that this COVID pandemic has been extremely stressful on the teaching profession generally, on our membership, and because it has been stressful on the membership, of course, by extension, it has been extremely stressful on me and the other officers of the union as well. We have had to work very, very hard along with the Ministry of Education to put things in place in essentially what has been an emergency response to education, trying to ensure that we continue as best we can with the very best quality of education, given our resources, given the realities of the pandemic, given the fact that it is novel, and there's so much that we did not know originally and that we are still learning every day about it, that has impacted then on us having to be very flexible and make changes consistently. We've had to assess and reassess and make changes, and all of those things then, of course, do translate to stress. Many, many meetings at all hours of the day and night, but it has to be done in the best interest of all who use school plants, all who are involved in education. Stress comes with what I do as the president of the union. I'm accustomed. That's the truth.
You signed up for it. And
Yes.
You signed up for it.
I don't know if I signed up for all of it, but
Well, you know, there's a saying that the Lord don't give you more, you know, that you can bear, and that He's done it because, you know, He trusts you. And sometimes I go like, well, don't trust me that much, please, because I'm not sure how much more I can take. So but you handle it well. I will say that. But let me ask you this: the decision to go 100% online starting today was something that the union had supported. Is there anything that you wouldn't have or done different, and have all of the conditions been met in order to start school in this way this morning, basically online learning?
well, we were fully supported given the global examples of the Delta variant, and the fact that the Delta variant is here and there is community spread of the Delta variant. We felt that online instruction, using the online modality, given its inefficiencies, given its deficits, was still the best, the safest way for us to continue the education of our youth. And the fact too that students had not been vaccinated. The vaccination, hopefully, if the uptake is what it should be and as quickly as it should be, and if trends start to dip downward, then hopefully we can aspire to going back to some level of face-to-face instruction, because there are deficits definitely with online instruction, despite the very best efforts of teachers, the efforts of the students, the efforts of the parents to assist. Given our realities, there are deficits. We have the deficits in relation to the digital divide, the lack of devices. The ministry has distributed over 16,000 devices, but in the interim, some of them have been damaged, etc. There is the problem of connectivity. Not all households have access to either electricity or internet, and that causes a problem in terms of the availability of the student to access class time. Then you have the suitability of the learning environment. Some of the homes are really not amenable to online instruction. You have lots of people moving in and out of the home. You have disruption in the background. You have noise. We have difficulties with the online platform. We have difficulties with consistency of connectivity in terms of bandwidth. And we have problems in terms of training, the availability of training both for students and teachers. And we have had to deal with all of that. But given those realities, given the seriousness of Delta, given the fact that we're now trying to get our school-age population vaccinated, we thought that that was definitely the best way to go at this point in time. We also believe that to get back to the face-to-face modality, which we know is for our students, our society, and our resources, the most effective way of instruction, to do that, we have to have the uptake of vaccination by our school-age population, that we need to have the highest possible number of students vaccinated.
What about the teachers as well? How is that going in terms of vaccinations? Are you having any issues maybe convincing, or any people who may be still on the fence that may need some more information?
There will always be people on the fence, yes, and there are some people who will not take the vaccine because of religious beliefs, others because of their health circumstances, let us say. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that generally the uptake by teachers, it has been very good. And the more students and teachers and ancillary staff that are vaccinated, then these protect the others who cannot, for various reasons, be vaccinated.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping, and those who are listening to you, and if they're on the fence, I'm hoping that they make a decision to vaccinate, because the faster we do it, the better off we will all be. One of the questions, because we have questions coming into as well, if the syllabus is being amended or adjusted to accommodate the complete online learning.
Yes. Now, the ministry has made it very clear that they want us to meet the students where they are, because, as I said, there are deficits. And so at both the primary and secondary level, there have been adjustments made to syllabi where that is possible. We are supposed to do assessment at the very beginning of this school year, and those assessments then will help us to determine where we need to meet our students. They will help to identify the deficits, and then they will help us then in turn to devise the strategies that we need to take our students where we need to take them. Some schools, in dealing with that at a secondary level, may shoot a lower first, where they're going to take certain, based on the results of the assessment, they're going to concentrate on addressing the deficits before they attempt to fully implement a first form program. And then in the second first year, they will be able to introduce elements of the second form program, etc. If it doesn't happen there, I do believe that it will really reveal itself, the deficits in the fifth form, and there may have to be a lower fifth down the line because the children have suffered because of this emergency education response. I just want to point out something for you. Because even though we are online actively teaching, the nature of online instruction means that your actual teaching time is limited. Students can only healthily be exposed to online instruction for X amount of hours per day. Those hours translate into a shortened teaching day. That shortened teaching day translates into shortened lesson times. And if I take my geography class, for example, at the fourth form or fifth form level, any subject at CSEC level, normally that class would have 40-minute sessions per week.
Mm-hmm.
In our online environment, they have either 5 or 30 minutes per lesson. If you have 30 minutes per lesson, it means at the end of the week, in every subject, you're losing one full 40-minute session that you would have had in face-to-face instruction. Now, you may say that is only one lesson. But if you multiply that by 12 weeks for the term, that is 12 lessons. Mm-hmm. And if you multiply that by 38 teaching weeks for the school year, you see where we're going. That is 38 lessons that you have lost, even though you're actively teaching. And remember, when we go to school and we do the face-to-face instruction, there's still the shortened school day because face-to-face is also occurring at the same time as online because we're not having the whole school population back in place. So as with the blended approach, with the hybrid approach, you're still losing instruction time. And the stress then that it puts on teachers and students to make up those deficits to prepare for those exit exams is tremendous. I haven't even touched on the subjects that have a practical element, like the sciences, the technical and vocational studies, the home ec, art, theater arts, and so on, geography.
Wow, yes. I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people probably may not be thinking about that too. They think it's just mass English, but it's a lot more.
Exactly,
it's a lot more.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And then there are some subjects that require field trips where you actively have to take your students out into the field to do the research for the CXC SBAs. None of those things can happen now because we cannot be operating in the group way that we need to for these things to happen. So we need to get our students vaccinated so that we can get them back safely into the school environment. Up to the 17th, the Prime Minister spoke on the 18th, and between the 1st and the 17th, there were 310 school-age children that had tested positive in Barbados in 17 days. Of course, the number is greater now. Mm-hmm. The COVID this Delta variant does not respect age, and we need to protect our children. The long-term effects on children are there, they're clear. There's also the Miss C. And we have already had the death of a 9-year-old from Miss C in Barbados. 2 days ago, I was reading that Trinidad had 55 cases of Miss C. I don't know how many deaths, but it is a very serious disease with long-term effects on children arising from COVID infection. And so we have to protect our children.
Most definitely. When we're going to have to take a commercial break here now, but when we come back, I want to ask you about the teachers' end of it now, not necessarily the vaccine, but with their devices and being parents too themselves. How are they managing? And I want to hear more about that when we come right back. We'll be back with Mary Ann Redmond after the break. Welcome back to Face It and Fix It. We are speaking with Miss Mary Ann Redmond, president of the BSTU. And before the break, I asked Miss Redmond about the teachers and how are they feeling and how are they coping, especially when they have children of their own, having to set up those children and then set it themselves. Do they even have enough devices to go around?
Well, I know that last academic year there were some teachers without connectivity, and there were a few teachers actually teaching from their cell phones, believe it or not. Now, yes, you are correct. Teachers are parents too, both mothers and fathers who have to actively assist with the online instruction of their children. Some teachers have children ranging in age from nursery to secondary, and they have to assist those students at every level while themselves facilitating online instruction. And so it has been difficult. It is not at all easy. You hear the complaints and you try to give as much support as you can and encouragement. Any recommendations that we can share, we do. But it is not easy for them. And as you said, a lot of people forget or don't think of necessarily consider the human aspect of teachers.
They're people too, and they're not robots.
They're people too.
Yeah,
exactly.
they're not robots,
Exactly.
and that's so true. I, as I said, I was guilty of that when I was at primary school. I mean, I thought they were perfect. That's the truth. I just said that, but I just didn't think they were human or would do the other things that we would do because, you're getting punished for something and you would never think, my teacher would never do that, And then it's kind of good that we have that kind of respect. Are we seeing that level of respect? I don't want to go off track a little bit, but let's talk about that for 1 second, the level of respect, even in the online setting. What are we seeing? What is being reported? And is it that they have less control? I would imagine as a teacher, because
yes, very much so. And that is one of the difficulties. You really do have very much less control in terms of disciplining and creating the type of atmosphere that you want for your students, for your classwork. And we have had reports of parents actually coming online and verbally attacking teachers and being disruptive to the class and to the work that the teacher is trying to do. So yes, there is that element as well. And it is reflective generally of a lack of regard and respect for order in our society, sad to say. And if I can just put a plug in here again, this is one of the things too that online instruction does not readily facilitate. And that is socialization of our students, where we spend time instilling in our students the mores, the values, the norms, the acceptable behaviors in our society. It is very difficult to do that online. And therefore, we are losing the opportunity and perhaps potentially compounding the problems that I am speaking about in relation to a general lack of discipline and regard and respect for law and order that we are seeing in our society.
Are we seeing children sort of falling back with being taught online? I know the 11 plus results came out and they did pretty well. A lot of them still kind of trucked on, but 11 plus is not the only thing. You've got children in first form, second form, in secondary, primary school. Overall, what's the feedback been like in terms of how have they been learning? Have you seen that they're doing less, learning less, grasping less?
Well, realistically, the 11 plus students, they had an extended time frame in which to complete or attempt to complete the syllabi. And the teachers worked long and hard with them. Now, throughout the rest of the school system, we had, as I said, identifiable deficits in the lower schools. In the upper schools, with our exit exams in CSEC and at Cape level, there was the reality that those two were delayed in terms of the commencement dates of the exams. But the problem there was, as I said already, with the time frame in which you have to complete syllabi and the loss of instruction time, CXC did not make the types of accommodation to the extent that they should have in relation to the timing, the scope, and the structure of the exams for students. We saw in 2020 that our students suffered. Many of them received grades that they did not expect. Neither they themselves nor their teachers expected them to get those grades. The grades were lower than the projected grades of the teachers. Of course, we are waiting the exam results this year, and we have to see exactly how our students have performed given the realities of teaching in a pandemic, realities that I find that CXC has not taken into consideration to the extent that they should have. They have not made the types of accommodation that other international examination bodies have. And so I think that that is something that we have to address very early in this school year so that we know for sure exactly what we are teaching towards and how to achieve it in the best interest of our students and in terms of their examination results. It has implications too for further training and education after children leave school. If they're leaving school with deficits, then they take the deficits with them to the next level.
When is the school term, by the way, ending this term? Is it extended or?
It is this 19th. Is it 19th of Friday? I think it's the 19th of December.
Because I wasn't too sure in terms of regarding the length of the time of the
it's 12 weeks.
It's still 12?
It's 12
It's always
weeks,
12, so we didn't lose anything?
No, this term is usually 14 weeks.
Right.
But we're having, we have a 38-week school year. And of course, the Ministry of Education has the power in law to make those adjustments in the term to accommodate the school year. So this term so far is projected to be 12 weeks. But we usually end up with that 38-week school year, however the adjustments are made to the various lengths of term.
I'm sure someone is saying, Joy, today just is the first day you asking it when it gonna end. And I could hear the children going, yay, go Joy, go Joy. Let us know when it will end. But I want to save the best for last. Something came up on, some comments, and if the producer can put it back, about special needs and not having a place. And I want to mention about our special needs students. They're saying, good morning, my grandson was going to special unit at a school. I am still waiting for a school for him. He has not been placed in the school as yet. Again, that's something I don't think you can respond to directly, but we're going to speak about in a general way about the special needs children and what are we hearing from our children with special needs and online teaching.
I know that the ministry has tried as best they can to make special accommodation. I know that there has also been increased training in terms of special needs. And I know that special needs and remedial education are not necessarily the same. But I know for sure that the teachers trained in remedial education have been reassigned, reallocated in various schools so that they will spend more time in the first form addressing deficits from children who have transitioned from primary to secondary, with the special needs education per se, I know that they are putting measures in place. I don't know the extent to which, I cannot speak authoritatively on the extent to which this has been done or how it is being facilitated at this point in time.
But what are your thoughts and comments about our children at the same being maybe considered a lost generation as a result?
No, no, and we definitely cannot allow this. COVID cannot win like that. And we, as a matter of fact, I think that perhaps it is allowing us the opportunity to reassess what we do and how we do it. It is the perfect time to look in depth at how we have approached education over time and what effective changes we can make and put in place to have the best possible approaches to education. It is allowing us that, I think. The ministry has taken steps in relation to the amendment of the whole education approach to education, educational reform. And I know Dr. Denny is actively involved in leading that push. And so the race is not for the swift. We may need this group, and I have been agitating for that since before the end of the last school year, that we either institute a lower fifth in schools that don't have them, or a lower first. And in that way, we can address the deficits. But the children must not suffer as a result of COVID.
All right, for final question, January 2022. What do you see? What would you like to see as it relates to our children? We know it's going to be here for a while. We know we got to live with it. What do you see?
I would love to see a population that is vaccinated, having reached that critical mass, that herd immunity, and throughout the population, school age and otherwise, so that we can try to resume some sense of normalcy in our lives, so that you can go out and party. Don't mind they say you're too old, because I like to party too.
Well, I was just saying, I was actually having a look at you when I saying, wait, what Mary Redmond doing though? She turned back the hands of time. I know, I'll say this, and I mean genuinely, and I know I'm meaning to swallow your head. You look lovely. You actually look like, when you said that we're stressed, and I'm thinking, she ain't that stressed, because it's not showing. I should say that in some cases with others, but honestly, you do look lovely. And I will say that genuinely. You do look lovely, I must say.
When Barbadians tell you look lovely, it's because you've gained weight.
Well,
and
no, I didn't say you look. I didn't say you're looking rosy. I didn't say, well, Lord, you got a little spark on your face and you got a little shine. You know, I didn't say that. But no, but I've seen you in the media for all the time, and we all have. And I remember looking at you this morning, and I'm like, Mary Redmond, Marianne Redmond, like, wow. So you know, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And I'm trying to lose a little bit of weight too myself, but you know, it's hard. But again, we want to thank you, and we always give our support to you and the teachers. Don't mind from time to time, people may get the impression that there's always a fight between the union and the ministry. Educate them a little bit in 1 minute. That is not a fight. It is just you guys going out.
We as a union, and we tell the principals and we tell the ministry this, we tell the boards of management this. Our aim is to work with you.
Right.
That is the only way we can achieve what we want to achieve. The problem is that perception is not always the same, and the agendas are not always the same. But first and foremost, we want to work collaboratively. We want to be communicated with. We want to be negotiated with. We want to be informed. And We have to be allowed opportunities for dialogue and consultation. And once those things happen, there is no conflict, there are no grievances, there are no disputes.
Exactly. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show for the first time. I'm hoping it will not be your last. And anytime you want to jump in on the show, you know you can always give us a call if there's a debate on education. You're always welcome to join us, Mary Ann Redmond.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll be back after the break with Dennis DePeiza. We'll be back. Welcome back to Face It and Fix It. Joining us is Mr. Dennis DePeiza. He is the General Secretary of the Congress of Trade Unions and Staff Associations of Barbados, also known as C2SAB. Hello, Mr. DePeiza. How are you?
Very good morning to you, and I'm doing well today. Thanks. And you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you very much for asking. This morning, first thing we want to ask you is about the union and this. What is the major concern right now of the union? If you had to just say what it is on the front burner, what is the main concern of C2SAB right now?
That's a very interesting question to pose first up. Because if I had to focus on what within the labor movement, and I speak to the Congress of Trade Unions and not as a union individually, but as a collective body of trade unions and staff associations, our problem is simply with that of maintaining the focus, and that is the unification of the labor movement, and to ensure that we as a body, that we are given our rightful place within the whole labor environment and within the governance of the country, where we are treated with respect, taken seriously, and offer the opportunity to be very much part of the consultative process.
So at the moment, I know you're part of the social partnership, et cetera. How is the union strategizing in a COVID-19 environment outside of the social partnership?
Well, clearly what we are doing is to play our part in trying to bring attention and awareness to the nature of the pandemic and to encourage workers and employers, for that matter, and the country at large, to try to adhere to the protocols in order that we can continue to have a safe environment, to ensure the safety and health and the welfare of human beings, and more importantly, also to ensure that the economy of the country continues apace, although we know it will be compromised in the current environment where there is a slowdown in business. But we want to make sure that at the first end, that we preserve lives and we restrict or contain the number of persons who could be impacted by the virus, because it has implications not only financial, social implications, and we want to return to what we call the sense of normalcy, so the country can move forward in a productive sense. So our overarching responsibility to the public is to be part of the education and awareness and part of the sensitization of the need for Barbadians to treat to the COVID-19 pandemic in the way that we have to make a response. And that response is one, that we should look after ourselves and our families and those, all of us in the society, and by doing what we believe is best. We have not been in the business of promoting mandatory vaccinations, but we are also asking people to act responsibly, to take on board what is best for them and the country at large and their families. And if the vaccine is the only way of us to combating the virus, then we have to make a conscious decision. What decision that individual makes is entirely on a voluntary basis, but we hope that persons will recognize that what could be a lifesaver for them, a lifesaver for others, and at least help us all to survive the fate of death because of the impact of the virus, that we will do so and ensure that Barbados comes out of this in a better way. It's not that we want to play down anybody's experiences, but we don't want to have a situation where we lose hundreds of loved ones, all because that we fail to at least consider to do what we might say is the only thing available to us, to take a vaccine, to save lives and to protect our own interests and welfare.
Well, as well as lives, people are also concerned about livelihood. And some of those concerns stem from having time off because a business may have some positive cases and wages lost. What is your position? What is the union's position on these things that have to happen? Because most businesses normally close, and are people being paid if they're closed? Or you have people coming to you to say, look, it's not my fault that you have a COVID case, and it's not my fault that you have to close. But then if you're working on a weekly wage, of course it will impact your weekly wage.
Let me say that those individual matters are not necessarily brought to us, because members, united members will go to the individual unions. We would then, that information will be fed into us at some point. And we take a broader policy position. And certainly we do not support employers who, for whatever reason, determine not to pay an employee because of the impact of COVID on the workplace. I know that's already been made clear from the start, that persons who had comorbidities and so forth, who were at home for the fear of contracting the virus, were not to be penalized. And we would hope that employers will be also demonstrate a sense of responsibility. One has to understand that in the current environment, fear and panic is overtaking everything. But at the same time, we cannot act as though we don't care, we don't have any sort of, as we said, a little bit of a nerve for the fact that people are under severe stress. And we believe that if persons at the policy level, that if there's an individual or individuals in the workplace who have contracted the virus or have been suspected, yes, if you want to close your workplace and sanitize it, fine. But there's no need to be shutting the workplace for 2 and 3 days and putting people in a tailspin. I'm aware that there are some companies that will come in and within 20 minutes sanitize the building, and within half hour you resume work. I don't think that, to me, that's an easy fix.
But Mr. DePeiza, what about, it's not only about sanitizing, what about testing? That also takes some time. So sometimes the employees have to be tested together with cleaning the building And in some cases, you don't get back test results, in 48 hours. Sometimes, well, it's supposed to be in 24 hours. Sometimes it takes 48 hours. So it's a combination of a delay as to why there are delays.
But as I said to you earlier, there's a whole lot of fear and panic that is really predicating this whole thing. Now, we have understood from the medical personnel and those who are managing the whole COVID-19 that there are protocols in place. What level of contact did you have? And therefore, if somebody did not have what we call direct contact, when you're going to close the whole place and put everybody out of work for 2 or 3 days, we have to we really seriously must analyze the information at our disposal and treat the thing in a manner that does not appear to or give the impression that we're just in a panic mode. I think we have to be more constructive and deliberate in what we do. And I'm hoping and praying that a lot of reasoning would be, in fact, be part of this. Most workplaces should have a safety and health officer. They should have a safety and health committee. And I believe that in times like these, working along with the COVID unit, that these personnel should be able to get together and make these assessments so that we make a determination as to what is the level of risk, what was the level of exposure, and if in fact, how many persons would have been immediately affected or would be associated or be in contact with an individual who may have been suspected. If I'm working in one department and somebody in another department may have been impacted, what do you have to close down the other 3 departments because somebody whom I never saw probably for 2 weeks?
But the funny thing is, you may go downstairs in another department and get a positive, but it's not connected to what happened in upstairs. It could be from the community. I mean, but you're right. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying you're right. Some people overreact and they shut everything down and leave people unemployed and people not being able to pay bills. But speaking of that and the unemployment situation right now, based on what you just said about people shouldn't have to shut down, I guess it's a no-brainer asking you this question. How do you feel and the union feels about a lockdown? I would suspect then you are not supporting, or you would not support another lockdown. But correct me if I'm wrong.
What I would say to you, question, no. But I would also say to you, from the very outset of this pandemic, the very first meeting of the social partnership, when this matter was put on the table, this Congress represented the issue very, very clearly. That lockdown was not the answer to the, and it has proved us right. Because every time we go into a lockdown mode, the numbers have skyrocketed. Because we have seen that when people are at home or in their own communities,
Mr. DePeiza, that's not necessarily true. This lockdown, you're seeing it. The one just before this one in February, we actually came down to about 8 people in isolation. We saw the numbers going down. I can't agree with you on that one, that it never worked.
But what
and not working with the Delta.
No, what I would say to you, and this, as far as I'm aware, we only had one lockdown. One. And that was at the beginning of when we had that 2-3 months time that we were really on the siege. Since then, we have not had a lockdown. But people are using this term lockdown to me rather loosely.
Okay, let me rephrase that. We were on a national pause earlier this year, and we were in a lockdown last year. Right now, we're slowing down, which is we have to, because you can't just leave business as usual. You and I would agree, obviously, that it needs a host, this virus, and the more we move around with each other and not do the right things, the faster we're going to catch it. That's a fact.
Is that really true? Let me contend to you that when we had as I said, the original lockdown, we had persons who were going to the supermarkets on a daily basis. And what information I was able to gather and was made public to us in the forum, there were an average of 80,000 persons who were on the streets per day. Now, and in that time, if COVID was spread in a real rampant way, I mean, I'm understanding and appreciating now that the environment here is a little bit more contagious and moving
a lot more.
I'm agreeing with you on that. But I'm just making the point. When we had 80,000 people on the road on a daily basis for 6 days per week. I mean, what was the sense then of locking us all away when we still were out there having to do business in order to, for us to survive more or less, even to go to groceries to eat. But we still had to work. We still had to do things of life, whether it's medical, for medical purposes or whatever. So we have to understand when we context these things, what are we trying to achieve by everybody lock away in the homes for 3 or 4 or 5 days or 2 weeks? To what end? What are we going to achieve if we are going to be talking about trying to ensure that we still maintain some semblance of life? We have to do some basic things. People have to function. People have to work, and we still have to, regardless of what happens, we have to make those adjustments. But certainly, locking away the public for the most part seems the answer.
Well, okay, but I know we could probably debate this and what lockdown and if it worked and so on and so forth, and I respect your opinion on that. But I still mean, if we had the Delta first, maybe, but we didn't know a lot. We locked down, and it was a harsh lockdown in the beginning for a virus that it was contagious, but clearly not as contagious as this one. And now that we really would like to lock down, financially we can't afford to do it. Someone here is saying, come together, love each other, save each other, follow the protocol, and get vaccinated. We are one people, think positively, and do our part. Now, if the unions want to switch it up a little bit from COVID, because recently you expressed some concern over the rising bank rates and fees. And if you're anything like me, I can hardly balance my checkbook, but sometimes I ask myself, well, look, I know I had $5 there, where it gone? Now I understand where it's gone. Share your thoughts on that with us in the next few minutes, if you can.
Well, I'm very clear that the Congress has made a position relative to what we call the fleecing of the people of this country, and I am aware that the idea of, as we told the public, of where some banks were asking people only to, well, this is now I call it a mandatory mode that has been struck by the bank. $50 is the minimum we can withdraw. It means that many persons, particularly those at the very low end, find it difficult, because you will appreciate that in this day and age, most persons don't have any large bank accounts. And if you ask the person who's living off the bare means, and they go to withdraw and they can only take 50, they might not want 50. They might only want $20 to buy food of a small meal or whatever, or pay a small bill. But you have to take 50 rent, and you know that you taking that 50. Some persons cannot manage their monies well, and they might exhaust it in one go. I am saying, be that as it may, the banks have to be more conscious that of what the type of society that we are living in these days, hard times, recessionary times. And when they look to impose these restrictions on persons, it is really something that has to be seriously condemned. But we go beyond that. I mean, you spoke about those fees, but even those persons who some employers would pay by check. Now you're telling me if I don't have the check which is written at your bank, I can't cash it there. I have to put it into a bank account that I open with you, or take it to another bank which I have an account. But then I have to wait 7 days to get $200 or $250 or maybe $150 or whatever the case may be, or whatever number. But it's an inconvenience, an unnecessary inconvenience. Because if your bank issues a check and your client has an account with you, has the funds there, what is the problem for you servicing that the requirement of your client? I've had an attorney at law who was approached as Congress and said he's willing to help us along with this matter if needs be, because the matter really is one where the banks are overstepping their boundaries and need to be tested in the courts of law. And I am not in a position to say whether we will accept the
I,
offer.
I would say
but
any court of public appeal and public action, because, correct me if I'm wrong, because and I'm asking you because I don't know, is this all of the banks or some of the banks?
Well, I'm aware of 3.
Okay.
I can't speak for, but I'm aware of 3.
And
And
including,
maybe there are more.
okay, and then other financial institutions as well, or just banks, as in literally banks and not credit unions? Banks.
I've heard of banks
Okay.
specifically.
So this is,
I can say to you, I've actually tested it, and I'm aware that 2 of them that I can speak to that are doing it.
well, you know, after this show, I can go find out if one of them is mine, and I will hope not, because I will say this publicly and encourage Barbadians: if it's not fair and it's not all of them, take your money out, put it where you will get a fair treatment. I would do that if it's whether the credit union or any other bank that certainly would not have these crazy fees. So, Mr. DePeiza, what say you? The power of the people versus the court. I think the people would win.
Yeah, but you know, Barbadians are a set of people who complain, but they are docile in terms of responses. And we'll make all the hullabaloo about a matter, and then we'll quietly sit in the corner and do as per usual. But it is time that we have to speak out about these matters, but we must also must receive the support of the powers that be. This is something that the Congress placed before the Social Partnership of Barbados. Admittedly, there was a brief discussion, but it was again deferred until a future date. But we need to get this matter really addressed and ensure order. And it means that not only the Congress, but I'm calling on all the NGO, civil society organizations who represent the masses as well, the politicians, those in the upper and lower houses. This is an issue that needs to be spoken to. And
But
really,
Mr. DePeiza, why we need to go all around there? Maybe we could just take our money out and go somewhere else. You would see how fast. I mean, you say Barbados and maybe not like that, but people like you, with your personality, your general secretary in a leadership role, certainly people like you can lead the charge to encourage workers. Look, change where you ask them to send your money. To me, the fastest way of crippling any institution, or particularly in this case we're talking about, is the bank.
that may be true, but we always respect the old notion of choice, and that's a right of an individual.
But they're not giving us any choice. If they ain't giving us a choice, why we should give them?
But we also have the collective power where we can bring together, you know, our action through whatever mediums that we so desire to bring pressure to bear. So I'm always saying the first option is to bring the pressure to bear. And if the state and the institutions of the state can advocate for that change, then we need not go to the most drastic measures.
Quickly, that WhatsApper, person said a comment on Facebook rather. Banks are crooks anyway. They're saying the ones here stop giving you $10 at the ATMs. You must now withdraw 20. Wow. And then be faced with charges for withdrawing. Now that's crazy. So I don't know about you, but I know when I leave this show and I pick up my daughter, I'll be heading to my bank to find out if they're one of them. And I know what I will exercise as a Bajan. One final question here before you go. You made a call a few months ago on the agenda to focus on unemployment and the rising incidences of poverty. What has transpired after that?
Well, as we all are aware, that call has been made, but the circumstances that continue to prevail have not done anything to bring about an immediate change. As you know, unemployment continues to be a problem as there's a whole lot of contraction in the economy, and COVID has not helped us one way or the other. Matter of fact, it has more acted as a disadvantage to the whole economy, generating jobs and creating new avenues of employment. I would admit that what we need to do now is, yes, get people to move towards looking at other ways of creating business activity. But the problem we have is that when we speak about entrepreneurship and all those, and people being self-employed, that is not going to be as readily carried forward as we want. Why I'm saying that? People need financial outlay, investment, and in order for business to grow, that needs an investment, and then you need what at the point markets, and you need customers, and a society that where we have limited spending power at our disposal, we will find that business will be constrained in more ways than one. But we will want to see where the private sector, corporate business can look at the avenues for developing their business activity, that they must take the lead. And we have heard a lot about investments coming on stream, but that has been a trickle effect. We have not seen it, the outturn of that as we anticipated, and we are hoping that this will come on stream and boost the employment numbers in the country, which right now I know that it is really taking a severe hit on the social services of our country.
Well, Mr. DePeiza, I want to thank you. I'm going to give you a minute, though, to wrap up and to conclude with anything that you want to tell us. But I will say this, I've never met you before. This is the first time. I am very impressed. I've listened to you from time to time. I can't tell you every time, but anytime that you want to make sure that you start marching or anything or speaking out against this injustice pertaining to the banks, I really don't feel that we need to go the way of the government. I believe that we could speak to the people, and I can guarantee you within 1 week, we could convince many Bajans to take their money out and go with the people who care about them and don't want to cheat them out of their money, as they may not know what to do, but people like you maybe, maybe help them and show them what to do, or recommend, I should say, because everything is still a choice. But final word at you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to say thanks for having me on the program today. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to my fellow Barbadians and encourage them at this point. We really need them all to try to do what is they can to ensure that we fight against the scourge of COVID-19. We want to give our thanks and appreciation to all those in the healthcare sector and other services that have been working assiduously to help to push the work forward. The Ministry of Health and Wellness, of course, and the Minister, must applaud their efforts. And I would like also to take the opportunity, as we look at the workers' movement, to encourage Barbadians, those who are displaced. Remember, there's still an opportunity, and we must always remain focused. Those of us who feel that we are not able to continue please make an effort to maintain your membership of the unions. The unions need to maintain their focus and to represent your interests, and you need to be part of the body so that the union movement remains strong. And I want you to give your support to labor, because labor is your arms, your leg, your feet, and your voice as we continue to serve you and to help to make our contribution to the governance and to the management of our country.
Thank you very much, Dennis DePeiza, General Secretary of C2SAB. Sir, I would definitely welcome you back here on the show again. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, please.
We'll be back after the break with Attorney at Law, Mr. Mark Hope, when we come back. Welcome back to Face It and Fix It. Our last guest is attorney at law, Mr. Mark Ford. Now, there's a reason why we brought Mr. Ford on, because recently we've been hearing more and more trends of anonymous voice notes and people sending around videos and calling names and saying some really horrible things. And we're not hearing anybody getting arrested or brought up for it. And we want to hear about the legal side now, about can they get away with this or not. So I want to welcome Mr. Mark Ford. I know there are many people who are interested in this topic because a lot of information has gone out there via social media and hurting a lot of people, a lot of lies, a lot of misinformation regarding the COVID pandemic. So good morning to you, sir, and thank you very much for joining us on this matter. So
Thank you, Joanne.
Okay. So my first question is, can I video you? You may know I videoed you, and I put it out there on social media without your permission.
Without your permission, you really should not. The thing is, right? Most people who are videotaped know they're being videotaped. They know. It's a rare thing that a person does that, and the person being videoed does not know. If that does happen, does the person have a recourse? Not that I can think of straight off. Because the statement was made, and essentially, if it can be traced to whoever, if the statement is, let's say, a defamatory statement, because essentially, based on my prior communications with Peter Aline, my thinking is along the lines of defamation. And defamatory statements are made about certain parties or groups thereof, and then those parties can have an action in law.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as a person being videotaped,
Mm-hmm.
as far as the person being without their knowledge, I do not know that they will really have an action in law. Under what tort?
Mm-hmm.
It can't be nuisance. It can't be defamation.
So if I am in the nude and you have decided to videotape me and put me out there, are you saying that nothing can happen to you?
Well, no, that could be considered to be an invasion of privacy.
Right. Okay.
That's right, an invasion of privacy in that way. Yes. In that,
and I didn't give you permission to share it. I may know
Right.
two partners get together, they may take pictures, one gets angry with the other, puts it out on the internet. That is illegal, is that not? Is that not?
That is illegal if it is like that. Now, I wanted to draw your attention to, did you see the video of the now former Minister of Agriculture in Jamaica?
No,
Having a fantastic time during the lockdown in Jamaica, and then he resigned the next day. Now, he was videotaped, right? And because that came, I believe, to the Prime Minister's attention, next day he tendered his resignation because he was celebrating with wine and no mask and everything, having a fantastic time without following any protocols. And he's a minister of government. Now, can he say, well, you videotaped me, without my knowledge, and you went and put it public? I don't think he has a recourse in that regard. I don't think he has a recourse to say, well, look, you invaded my privacy. But in the example you gave, Joyanne, where you are in the nude somewhere and, somebody invades your privacy, arguably that's a different matter altogether.
All right, so let's get back with the COVID pandemic and so many videos circulating around. Some calling names. I've seen names called on Facebook. I've seen persons' children insulted on Facebook that has nothing to do with the individual that they're they're putting up. You're telling me that this is not computer misuse, is it?
I think it will fall under the Computer Misuse Act. If you can trace it, trace the origin. One of the difficulties that is faced here is tracing some of these voice notes to the origin. You see? Because everyone wants to be a journalist. Everyone wants to be first out of the block. Hey, did you hear this? Did you see this? Right? And I think that under the Computer Misuse Act, an action can be brought against perpetrators for doing so.
That's for authors. The author, if you find the author, yes.
If you can find the
author of a voice note or who wrote something.
Note.
But what about those who share? What if you find out?
It's, you see, again, Joya, if we are talking defamation, right? Yes, because you're not supposed to share a defamatory statement, right? Now, so if you really want, I mean, I have had to write letters to people, to be quite frank, where statements have been put on Facebook denigrating the character of someone. So yes, it can be done. It can be done. The thing is that so many thousands of these voice notes have gone out. People just take them as, hey, that's just a statement somebody made. If, however, you are aggrieved enough and you take it personally, like you just mentioned, like my children or something like that, well then, I would opine that you can take an action against the sharer of the statement to the extent that it is defamatory and not simply just a statement saying, I see John Brown, son somewhere.
We've had some problems here with a particular site. Would not call the name, not because I probably can't, because I would not give it any publicity, but sites of that nature that would share information about people doing things and pulling down their character. So you're saying once it is something that can defame you, like for example, if somebody puts up Joanne Haigh is a thief and it impacts me and my ability to work, my family, that's where then the problem lies. But if they say Joanne is fat, which is a fact, then there's nothing that, there's nothing I could do. I mean, they say you're fat, you're fat. So it's the nature of the statement that is shared or the information that is shared that makes the difference.
Not every statement made is a defamatory statement.
Right. Okay.
A statement might be some form of harassment, but then again, that has a particular definition as well. Or it may be, you may even consider it vile. But that doesn't make it defamatory. There are some names we use in Barbados. You may say this person is a so-and-so. That doesn't make it defamatory. Now, you use the word thief there just now. That's extremely dangerous. That's extremely dangerous. Or calling a person, let's say she works on Bush Hill, for example. Now, if it is true,
I was just about to say, if she works on Bush Hill, then...
If she works on Bush Hill, then that person has the defense of justification in that a defamatory statement must be a false statement. It must be false.
Right. Oh, yes. So it's not, let's just say that a guy is gay and somebody says he's gay and he is. He can't then go and put you in court for saying to tell everybody. He may not want everybody to know he's gay, but the point is people have said
he has no recourse.
He has no recourse. Okay.
No.
Okay. None.
He has no recourse.
Okay.
One of the if we can hone in with your permission,
sure,
Joyanne, on some of the videos being put out in light of the pandemic, because I think that's one of the major concerns of persons now, especially the most recent videos pertaining to doctors and so on. I would, if from my own little legal corner, advise the perpetrators, and I use that word advising, of these videos that they are batting very close to the wind. And by that I mean they're walking an extremely thin rope. Community-wise, I would advise them to cease and desist immediately. Because I think that when you consider we are in a pandemic, these health professionals are trying to save lives. That is their remit, that is their duty, that is their sworn oath, as I believe Dr. Charles said in the first part of your program. And for these people to come and imply certain things which I'm not obviously going to repeat here, I think that they are in a very dangerous position and can be taken before the law courts of Barbados and sued. Because they may think, oh, I'm just an activist. But these people never went to medical school. They don't know anything about what goes on, and a lot of it is hearsay. So Joyanne, if you told me that your cousin twice removed said something to you that she believes happens up at Harrison Point, or happens in a doctor's office, or happens wherever, that cannot hold water. Whether you tell me or not, I don't tell lies. I can back up what I said. Back it up with what? I would love one of those health professionals to come to me or go to their lawyer and seek some advice. That's the honest truth, because these persons, these perpetrators, are, to me, doing a lot more harm than good. And I dare say that to me, but don't then turn around and blame the health professionals. You know, I've said in another forum, Joyanne, these doctors are the people we trust with our children. So why would I now want to take medical advice from somebody who never even walked through the door of a medical school? Why? To cause my death? So therefore, I am saying, without repeating any potentially defamatory statement, if any medical professional, whether nurse, nursing assistant, doctor, or whatever, feels aggrieved enough, and I gathered from very good sources that some of them have felt very aggrieved at some of the statements that have been made, then I would advise them to take the next step, because they may have to seek a cease and desist order from the court. I'm sorry if I took too much of your time.
I know, because I didn't even interrupt you, because of course we just started off because we wanted to get an idea of what you can do and can't do, but this is really the meat of the matter and the reason you're here. We are seeing an increase in these videos, an increase in the voice notes. People talk about freedom of speech, but it is freedom of responsible speech. And, you know, I'm tired of people saying, do you? What do you mean, do you? You don't have a moral compass to do you. You can only do you when you have morals. Because sometimes I ask myself, I mean, truth be told, what we see sometimes, we ask about the mental state of some of the individuals, truthfully. We ask about, maybe, I ask myself, maybe they failed in biology. maybe they wanted to become a doctor. Maybe in their minds, they actually believe that they're doctors. And Barbadians, good gosh, we can't follow people that may be certifiably insane. You know, it could be. We don't know. You know, certain, but they give you the impression that, you know, they're, you know, all the cherries in the tree ain't there. You know, so I don't know, but I'm hoping that Barbadians listen to you. So you got like a minute and 45 seconds. I just want you to repeat what you said, even if you said in different words again, uninterrupted, for people who are doing this. And could we please repeat it again, if you can?
For your own good, the video makers that I call the perpetrators, cease and desist, or these people that you are trying to pull down in the eyes of right-thinking members of the society, right? Which essentially is a core element of defamation. Cease and desist. Take my advice, because I also want to speak, Joyanne, to the members of the public. If you want to take your advice from somebody who walks in the street every day doing nothing, that is your business. But my advice to you is get your advice from the people who have saved many, many lives. If you have to go to Harrison Point or any of the other isolation facilities that are being set up, get your advice from the doctors, not from these video makers. Who, I mean, what you want, would you ask yourself this question: would you want the doctors to leave Harrison Point and send these two people up there to look after you? No. It's common sense.
I like that one. That is a good question. While we wrap up again, because I can leave the final words at you, because that's a good question. Barbadians, all of these video makers you see, we're going to come right back. Mark, we're going to take a commercial break. We're going to come right back.
Okay. Fine.
Welcome back to Face It and Fix It. We're speaking with attorney at law, Mr. Mark Ford. Mark, we have about a minute, 30 seconds left, and for you to continue with that, because I like it if it is that they really believe in what these video makers are saying. maybe they should, see if they can save their lives if something happens. I'll let you have the final words.
Yeah, thank you. I heard Dr. Brian Charles making a statement about remdesivir because I think that's like the buzz drug around in some of these videos now. And you know what? For somebody to come on and make a statement like, and since it wasn't made defamatorily, for example, Joyanne, there are drugs for high blood pressure that can cause erectile dysfunction. Should the doctor stop prescribing them? I mean, you can't just simply say, or you can't come and tell people whose lives doctors are trying to save, do not take a drug. Of course, if the person don't want to take it and they die, who do they blame then? The doctors? So going back to my to what I was saying, citizens, put your lives and the saving thereof not in the care of these video makers. Put it in the care of the daughters who have saved thousands of lives, I dare say, up at Harrison Point and other places in this country under COVID-19.
Thank you very
That
much.
is the best I can give you.
Thank you very much, Attorney at Law Mark Ford. Thanks to all of my guests today on Face It and Fix It. Barbadians, please vaccinate. Listen to the radio stations for the vaccination points. And please, at least mask up. Do the right thing until we come back. My name is Joyanne Haigh. Please stay safe until we meet again.